It's just a pleasure. You see, I believe that whatever we do is you either do it for your own benefit or you do it for the benefit of something else, which is in this case the breed. And yeah, now I even made my own stand.
That's awesome.
Okay, right. So now I do things for the benefit of the breed, and I've been doing it for many years. Unfortunately, it doesn't go down well with everybody. You know, not everybody has that same mindset. For a lot of people, it's really, really about the money they can make, and they don't care a damn. So I'm not really popular in those circles.
Can you just talk about your history with dogs and where you got your start with Boerboels and where the passion really started to resonate for you?
Okay, I started with Boerboels involuntary because my grandfather, when I was a very small child, I actually used to stay with my grandma and grandpa for a couple of years when I was really small because I had two sisters, twins, which were quite sickly, and grandpa and grandma decided I was better stay with them. I'm better off. And what happened is my grandpa used to tell me all the stories about the Boerboels that he grew up with. In those days, they were not known as Boerboels; they were simply known as bulls, or in Afrikaans, bulle. And his father must have been breeding with them if he could tell me the stories of his youth. So yes, I never really thought of the day I'm getting into Boerboels now. I was born with Boerboels. They were always Boerboels. I'm now 66 years old. So yes, so for me personally, I've had 66 years of being with Boerboels. And if I take my family history back, my mother before me, my grandfather before her, and probably my great grandfather, which I never knew, and there's no photographic record or anything. It was simply the storytelling of my grandfather. So that's how I got involved in Boerboels. I got my first personal Boerboel, which my mom and dad said was mine, when I was probably about 9 years old or 10 years old. They went and they bought me a dog, which in those days were pedigreed. Not by SABT. SABT didn't even exist then. It was a KUSA registered dog, Kennel Union of South Africa registered dog. So that's where my background in Boerboel started. I was always involved in the associations. I was always an appraiser for many, many years, junior appraiser, senior appraiser, international appraiser. I've participated as chairman of IBASA, vice chairman of IBASA first for many years, first training officer, then vice chairman, then became chairman later of the Elite Boerboel Breed Association of South Africa. So yes, I've been around the block more than once.
This may sound like a rudimentary question, but I think in essence, it's important to ask. What is a Boerboel?
A Boerboel is not any big dog with a black face. Oh, it's not any dog that carries the paperwork that says it's a Boerboel. Because unfortunately, in today's commercial environment, anybody can go and pay a fee and get a scrap of paper that says my dog is a Boerboel. A Boerboel is a dog with unique characteristics in its appearance, in its temperament, in its mobility, in its genetics. Those are, for me, the four main pillars, and in its health, the five main pillars that the Boerboel has its identity in. It's not a pot of porridge. It's a very specifically looking, specifically behaving, specifically mobile dog that has certain functionality. That is a Boerboel. It's not in a piece of paper, and it's most definitely not because you think it might be a bull.
Can you talk about what the official standards of the Boerboel are, and how that compares to the Boerboel we see today?
Okay, breed standards became a joke. Now I'm saying rather harsh things today, but those are facts. Breed standards became a joke because every single committee that gets elected or every single new organization has somebody with some concept or some interpretation of a specific breed standard who then rewrites it, makes it the official breed standard of that association or of that term of office of the committee, and they then measure their dogs according to that. So really, breed standards became a joke. If you don't measure a breed standard against a set of rules, you do not know how far you've drifted. I appraise dogs in many countries across the world, and I'm used to seeing a lot of breed standard drift in the various countries. There is no hard line drawn that says this is what a Boerboel should look like, behave like, move like, etc. So what I did is I tried to put together a generic breed standard for the Boerboel, and I soon realized, no, 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 no. There's simply too many, and they're too varying. So, because there is no organization with international clout that can set out a breed standard for the Boerboel. The South African Boerboel Breeders Society is a breeders society. It's not a breed society. They are recognized by law in South Africa, but they carry no weight internationally. And unfortunately, their approach to the dogs have alienated the approach to cooperation in the dog world has alienated them from most of the organizations that do have some clout and some international acceptance. Um, so what happened is when I looked at their breed standard and how far that has drifted just in the last 4 or 5 years, it became absolutely not even representing the dog breed that I knew anymore. You know, you can nowadays take bull mastiff and put it in most of the breed standards and measure it, and it will get a passing score. Or you can take a Cane Corsa and put it in, and it will get a passing score. The guys lost the whole concept of the identity of the breed because breeders were prescribing what the breed should look like. It's not the role of a breeder, because every single breeder will tell you that what I breed is correct and this is what the breed should look like. Those decisions should have been removed from the breeders a long time ago. So, talking about the breed standards, I then went back to the very first breed standard which I have in writing, and that was the breed standard that was written in 1987 by the founder members of the South African Boerboel Breeders Society, the SABT. I then compared that to the next organization that came along called the Historical Boerboel Breed Society. I found their breed standard and I compared the two, and I found a great similarity between the two. I then took the third breed standard for the breed that I know of, and that was the breed standard of the Elite Boerboel Breed Association of South Africa. I took that breed standard and I compared it to the other two, and great similarity. Yes, great similarity. There were minor points in which they differed. And so I started building up, and I found that the breed standards really remained very uniform, very close together until a couple of years ago. And then the commercial value of the dog came in and things went haywire. It really went all over the show. Um, because somebody believed he could make money out of black dogs, he was allowed to crossbreed and produce black Boerboels. Because somebody believed, now at the latest EGM, they had a presentation that the chocolate Boerboel must be accepted, an appeal. And it's not just about color. The dogs lost their head structure, they lost their physical body structure. The temperament is horrific nowadays. It's nowhere close to the temperament of the dogs I know or I grew up with, and which I still have. Um, the 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 refusal of the organizations to, for instance, even look at temperament testing shows you that they've got no clue what they're doing. They're simply there for the breeders who wants to churn out as many dogs as possible with as high a score as possible, have as many ribbons and championship awards as possible, because that sells puppies. It sells puppies. It's a sales organization, not a breed organization. So yes, breed standards became a joke. I wrote a book at the end on my findings on all the breed standards, where I compared all of them to each other. And I called that book The Breed Identity of the Boerboel. And even if I'm long gone, people will be able to go back and say, no, 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 no. Let's measure our breed standard that we have in our organization against the basics. Let's see what the breed identity of the Boerboel is saying. What should the ears look like? Where must the eyes sit? How many legs must this thing have? It is really part of the breed identity, which is very well described. The book turned out to be massive. It's 300 and just over 300 A4 pages. It's a massive book, but it's not easy reading. It's not a bedtime story that you quickly read through. It's hard going. It's a tough truth. And if you want to really know something about the breed and how the breed should function and which form should follow function, get hold of the book. That's the solution. That's my comment on modern breed standards.
What about the modern temperament doesn't measure up to the reality of what the real Boerboel is?
Yes, the temperaments drifted quite far. Boerboels used to be family dogs. They used to live on the yard, surrounded by chickens and ducks and whatever the farmer used to have. They were farm dogs. They are Boerboels. When the commercial value of the dog came in, the dog became a kennel animal. And Boerboels are nowadays, except in extremely rare circumstances, raised in kennels. Most breeders, I went to see a breeder the other day, and I was absolutely horrified. I was horrified about the dogs I saw there. The specific breeder owns like 80 dogs, right? All of them labeled as Boerboels. It's a lady. She has not been in many of their kennels. Never. She has kennel masters who feeds the dogs, and this and that. She has no idea about the temperament of what she's breeding. Now, temperament is genetically transferable. We all know that. We know that environment plays a role. We know that there's a couple of things that play a role, but temperament is mainly determined by the genetics that you're putting in. So if you have no clue of the genetics you're putting into a mix, how can you even think that you are producing a desired temperament if you don't know what you're starting with? It's like throwing different ingredients into a pot and hoping you'll get a specific cake out of it. If you had no clue of what the ingredients were, you just opened the boxes in the cupboard and you chuck them in a pot, there's no chance of getting the cake that you desired. So yes, Boerboels used to be much more of a family dog. They were family dogs. I still see Boerboels that are very friendly, that are very protective about to the children, etc. They were never lion hunters. They were never killers of men. They were not supposed to be that. They were a companion dog that lived on the yard of the farmer. And if there was something strange outside, it would bark. And if it would, somebody would try to climb the fence, it might bite it. Right? It might bite that person or get him away. It's not an aggressive animal. It's a protective animal. And unfortunately, people don't understand or don't have the foggiest what the difference between a protective animal and an aggressive animal is. I've seen in the United States the application of the American Temperament Test Society's test on Boerboels. It's excellent. It works very well. It will identify the crazy, fearful dog, which you don't want because that's the big biter, the fear biters. And it will identify the overly aggressive. It will show you the confidence that the dog has, and it will show you its recuperation time once it's had a fright or it got angry or whatever. That's what a temperament test is and what it should do. Right. So individually, I believe that all Boerboels should be measured. I see all over the world that Boerboels are getting banned. Here in this country and in that country, and they included in the same bracket as the XL bully and this and that, because Boerboels were used to breed the XL bullies. Right. We know about that in the society. The Breeders' Society did nothing about it. Nothing. Right. So I believe that, yes, temperament should be seriously addressed. It has deviated substantially from where it used to be. And I hope that some of the people and some of the breeders listening in on this podcast actually take action and try to remedy a couple of things.
So, as somebody who has never owned a Boerboel and really only been around a couple, what I've noticed with Boerboels um, is they're more aloof. They're not a dog that is going to be overly friendly with the stranger.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
they're going to be close to their owner, and they're going to
mhm,
watch you, and they're going to allow you to enter the space if the owner is comfortable with you. Um, and they're not going to be the kind of dog that needs a lot of attention, say like another type of mastiff breed might, because they're more geared towards more of a farm life. Am I correct on that, on those lines?
You're absolutely correct. You're 100% correct. Boerboel's temperament wise, I should leave my kids, small kids, with them with confidence. No problem. They should be a protector, and a protector of its family, a protector of its environment. Um, just yesterday, there was another farmer here whose Boerboel came in on the back of his truck. They stopped on my yard where there are other Boerboels around. My Boerboels did not attack that one because they knew it would protect its territory, which is in that state, in that instance, the truck or the guy that drove in ferociously. They just looked at it, barked at it a couple of times, and went and lay down under the tree. When the guy came back out, I wanted to get quite close to his truck, and the dog growled at me. Fine, it's doing its job. I then left the owner alone. He got into the truck and he drove off. No skin off his nose, none of my dogs' noses. They were all happy and behaving like Boerboels should. They've been family dogs. They should see people coming into your yard, and if they don't pose a threat, because I believe one of the things in the Boerboel's makeup, which is very or extremely difficult to describe because nobody has ever been able to measure it, is the fact that the dogs have a threat perception. I grew up with on a farm, and my father used to, even when a worker came in onto the yard, a new worker, and the dogs would either allow him or not allow him. If the dogs would not allow him on the yard, he would tell the guy, "I'm sorry, this job is not for you, because pretty soon one of these dogs are going to nip you. So I think you better look for another job." And when we walked away, my dad would say, "You know, if the dogs don't trust him, I can't trust him. For sure not. That threat perception of the Boerboel has never been really defined, but it's always been there. And I hear no mention of it anymore. Because how do you know if your dog grows up in a kennel and only sees the outside of the kennel when it's taken to be scored and given a certificate, if it has a threat perception or not? So, yes, I believe you are right in your description of the breed. And yeah, good luck. Your summary is pretty accurate. Yeah, I left South Africa a couple of years ago. I settled in Mozambique. Now, Mozambique is one of the poorest countries in the world, but it's an unbelievable place. It's still got very wild nature. Yeah. I live in the bush. I really on my farm. I've got about 350 hectares of absolute forest, of wild bush. Um, I have monkeys, I have baboons, there's leopards around, there's elephants regularly, there's hippos in the river, there's crocodiles that even come up my little creek. So yes, we've got to be aware. And then there's all the game poaching traps and things like that, which is a big danger to my dogs, snares, etc. But this is where I live, and my dogs cope well here. They're tough. They are much tougher than put it like this. The original dogs, the farm style dogs, are much tougher than the rubbish that is awarded with huge championship titles, etc. nowadays. Because I see dogs that can't move that are being declared national champion and great, ultra great champion of the universe. And man, it's the marketing spiel is just not stopping, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. The dog can do nothing, but is declared as the ultimate. So I'd rather see a dog which is a more mobile dog, which is a functional dog, which is still capable of protecting his area, which is fast enough to be a man stopper, which is fast enough to get away when a caracal comes out of the bush and the dog has to run, or defend himself. Got bulk enough to actually stand his ground. But that's getting very rare. It's getting exceptionally rare. I'm really despondent about the future of the breed at this stage, because in very few places in the world do I still see dogs that I would love to bring back to my kennel. Yes, I see some in Russia. I've seen a couple in the United States. In Europe, there's still a couple of good dogs, but they all at the stage tending to go too big as well, too massive, following the South African example. And really, in South Africa, most of the dogs that are winning championship awards at this stage are horrible. They're not tested for the right things. It's who the owner is, who the breeder was, and how much it weighs. That's how big their head is and how much it weighs. And then I see they also love exceptionally long lips and flews and hollow backs. If your dog has that, it's going to become a champion. Right. Swaybacks are the in thing. It's sad. It's really, really sad.
When was the boom of the Boerboel? When did you see it starting to really become popular? And was there any talk then to be to, hey, we need to, like, it's okay, it's being popular, but we need to really make sure that we're not letting this thing go, and where we're going to lose control over what the standards and what the dog is? Was there any talk about that, or was it just about selling puppies?
No. There was absolute talk about that. What happened about 10 years ago, when the breed really started getting popular? The all the breed organizations at that stage, South African breed organizations. It was Boerboel International. It was the Elite Boerboel Breed Association of South Africa. It was the South African Boerboel Breeders Society. And it was, who else? KUSA, the Kennel Union of South Africa. we got together under the chairmanship of the president of CUSA, and we negotiated a constitution for a single organization. We negotiated a breed standard, which would represent the breed, and which we could then push out and do. We believe would still protect the breed. However, one of the organizations in South Africa, there's a law. Well, the law has been around for many years. One of the organizations actually double-crossed the whole rest of us, and went to the government official who's responsible for the application of this act, and said, you know what, we represent all the breeders in South Africa, us as an organization. We represent all the breeders in South Africa, and there's very important international breeders coming to visit us. We need you to issue us with this license as the national sole representative organization now. This government official, unfortunately, was duped, and he did what he was told. When we found out about it during these negotiations, we were horrified, and we immediately went to go and see. We said, how the hell can you do it? We're busy negotiating to form a single organization. He immediately went to court, and he said, well, let's get this then nullified, this license that I gave the guys. However, you know, if you work for government and they, on a government budget, appoint you a little government legal representative, and he ends up against guys that really saw the commercial potential in what they got right, who appointed one of the top senior advocates in the country, you stand no chance. So the government lost. The questions that were asked in the court have still not been answered. The court ruled on certain things that the advocate steered them towards. But the questions that were asked has not been answered. And unfortunately, it placed these guys in a position where the other organizations had to shut down. Legally, we had to shut down. There were talk. There were lots of talks. There were lots of negotiations. The common constitution is here. I have it. And it's not just me that says that. The other representatives of the organizations, CUSA, Kennel Union of South Africa, their representatives were Mr. Greg Eva, who has unfortunately passed away, but also Mr. Danny Human. He's still alive. He's in Cape Town. He's on Facebook. You can ask him. Mr. Andre Bosman of Bosvlei Boerboels. Now, Uncle Andre is now retired, but he's still alive, and he can give evidence to all these facts. The Boerboel International was represented by Vincent Marvel. So Vincent Marvel is still around. He's still active. He can give you evidence of what exactly happened. And I was the IBASA representative, me, and I normally used my vice chairman at that stage, James Brennan, the late James Brennan. So we were the negotiating team that worked on this, and everything is well recorded. So yeah, unfortunately, we were caught out, and those negotiations did take place, but at the end of the day, for the better of the breed, I had to stand back to the approach of for the better of the pocket. So yes, it's a sad situation, but that's what happened in South Africa. The only factor that was that what won at the end of the day was a commercial consideration. It was the money in the breed rather than the future of the breed. Okay, that's a very interesting statement. And I was actually approached by the president of the South African Boerboel Breed Society the other day, because they wanted to redraw the picture of the hyena that they always, sorry, we call it jokingly the hyena, because the dog doesn't look like a Boerboel at all, and they used it in their training manuals and everything as the example of what a Boerboel should look like. And he actually allocated some funds, and he said, we need to redraw this picture so that when people see this picture, they can say, this is a Boerboel. They can measure their dogs against the Boerboel. Now, I personally started trying to draw that picture about 12 years ago. And as I dug in, and as I said, as I went back into the old breed standards and the new breed standards, and use a simple thing like the filling between the eyes of the dog. Simple, one tiny little aspect. And if I look at what the old breed standard used to say, and the fact that it's ignored in the new breed standards, and this and that, and what's the effect on the dog, I must try and draw that. The drawing got so complex that in time I realized I can't. It's impossible to capture everything in a drawing. Yes, I can do, for instance, the angulation of a hind leg. I can illustrate in a drawing. But how do I describe the musculature that should go over it? How do I describe when it is excessive or when it is too little? That becomes virtually impossible to put in a picture. Because a picture is not, this is not a dream picture. You're not trying to build the ideal dog. You are trying to build the correct dog. So there's a huge difference in drawing the picture of the ideal. If I drew the picture of an ideal, XL Bully would be pretty close to ideal, right? It's a strong, muscular dog. It's got everything. It's got size. Everything is there. But it's not representing the A breed. A breed has to have characteristics that is recognizable. Now, I gave up trying to draw that picture. The book that I published on the breed identity has got a hell of a lot of illustrations in it, a hell of a lot of pictures. I think there's something like 600 pictures in the book. But that really eventually replaced the picture. So for me to give a verbal description of what a Boerboel should look like, or to even give you a very complex drawing or picture of this is basically impossible. It ended up in being, as I said, a 300-page book, because a picture can never tell you what the effects of inbreeding will be on the dogs. A picture cannot show you temperament. It cannot show you mobility. It's static. It can't show you pace. It can't show you reach. It can't show you maintenance of a top line. It can't show you the placement of the feet. So yes, I would love to be able to do that, but after nearly 15 years of attempting to do that, I've given up. I wrote a book, and I think that is, even though it is very hard going, there is no easy recipe to get to this one. I hear clearly what you're saying, and that's one of the problems I have at this stage. I believe the Boerboel, when the old traditional Boerboels used to live on the farmyard, when they were due to have puppies, the female, the bitch, would go and isolate herself and dig a hole and have puppies. And in the morning, as kids, we used to get up and say, "Whoa, mom and dad, there's puppies." And then dad would come and check if the puppies are all okay, and maybe give them a little bit of extra milk for the day, first day or two. And after that, those puppies were on their own. Boerboels were not known to have any huge problems birthing. Really, they raised their own pups. They could birth naturally. They could mate naturally. Nowadays, it's a different story. I know of breeders, and also the specific breeder has got a huge percentage of inbreeding in his kennel. Now, inbreeding affects the natural immunity and resistance of your puppies. It's a fact. You might be able to clone a dog eventually. All your dogs look exactly the same through inbreeding, but they are very unhealthy. The pups get born by cesarean section. From cesarean section, the pups go straight into an incubator, and they are being hand-fed until they are big enough to leave the incubator. By that time, their mother's milk have dried up, so they never suckle on the mother. They don't get any form of immunity from her. None of it's transferred. Yes, the vets still want to see the certificate if the mother has been vaccinated against this or injected against that. But the puppies never suckled on her. They didn't have any chance to pick up any of the immunity. You just heard one of my Boerboels seeing something strange at the back. It's probably my new worker. It doesn't sound as if they heard an elephant, because then they kick up a hell of a racket and they call me immediately. So we can come and assist. But the the whelping process have really changed a lot. And nowadays, I see, the dogs are going for scans, and then when the date is close, they go into a labor room, and there's a vet on site, or they do full, don't even risk the life of the female dog, and they have a cesarean section, and the puppies go into incubators, and it's all type of problems. I never saw that. It never happened. We never had hip problems. We never had problems with any other health problems, really. And the dogs knew how to behave, because if the puppy misbehaved, its mother would nip it until it listened and learned the rules. They were raised on soil, not on slippery floors, so hips were never injured or damaged while they were still puppies. The dogs were healthy, and they had a high level of immunity, a high resistance to natural occurrences. One of my females here, a dog called Kadima Estrella, I gave a lot of my dogs away when I moved to Mozambique, and I gave a lot of the dogs to Kadima Kennels, and they returned some of the puppies to me as part of the deal. So this is a Linjo dog, but it carries the name of Kadima. Was bitten by a puff adder the other day, bitten in the face. She was she was pregnant at that stage. Her face swollen was swollen like this, and she could hardly swallow. So I gave her a little bit of extra milk and more liquid food for a day or two, and she was fine. And she had a normal litter of puppies. Now that doesn't happen anymore to the seriously inbred dogs and the dogs that are, they. I see breeders advertising, oh, my dog has got this champion in his pedigree 5 times and this other champion 3 times. Man, there's no diversity anymore in your dog. Your dog is inbred to such an extent that it's a clone of some picture. It's not a functional dog anymore.
Because I remember even in the 80s, English Bulldogs being healthier and more vibrant, and so
Absolutely, I also remember them. They were functional dogs,
yeah,
and their functionality was partially destroyed by inbreeding.
yeah.
Remember what they can call it: line breeding. They can call it. It's called very many fancy names nowadays. But if you calculate the COI, the coefficient of inbreeding of any dog, right, you will see what is happening there. COI is an eye opener. I believe that any coefficient of inbreeding of over 5% should be frowned upon. Over 10% should not be allowed. The dog should not be registered anymore. However, I know that it's quite common for some of the breeding dogs to have a 40 to 50% coefficient of inbreeding, which is sick. As humans, we don't allow incest, but we actively practice incest with our dogs because for somehow the penny didn't drop that it's got the same effect in a human as it has in a dog. Dogs are seen as an object that you can just inbreed and perform incest and continuously do it, and nothing will happen. We know something will happen. We don't do it as humans. It's illegal as humans, and we see the results of that as humans. It's immoral, and I want to, in my opinion, high levels of inbreeding in animals is also immoral. It's a fact. If you look at all the research, there's a researcher that I've been following quite a lot about. She's also got a very open mind. A lady called Dr. Caroline Bouchard. She did a lot of research on inbreeding, and she came up with amazing findings on, for instance, not just the fact that immunity is affected and longevity is affected and fertility is affected, But she came up with correlations that shows that, for instance, vaginal prolapse is seriously affected by the coefficient of inbreeding, and she did it purely statistically. She would compare the statistics, the incidences, compare it to the coefficient of inbreeding, and see there's a correlation. It's simple. It's mathematicians' work. It's not even geneticist work. But you can clearly identify that there are correlations of things that are going wrong in a lot of the breeds, and which is ascribed to, well, this was probably part of the breed. No, my friend, it was probably part of one or two dogs in the breed that were popular for other reasons, which were then excessively used and which influenced the breed with their genetics. If you breed an animal and you inbreed an animal, you are fixing what that animal has in its offspring. You are cementing it in place. And you're not just cementing the good things that you pick, that you think this dog's got a hell of a nice head, so let's inbreed it excessively and we will get those nice heads in all our puppies. That dog also might have bad hips, might have some genetic problem in it, might have stomach problems, might have heart disease, might have so many things that are genetically, might have a genetic base. And you are fixing every single one of these things in the offspring of that dog. You're getting a big head, but you're getting a bad heart, and you're getting bad hips, and you're getting X, Y, and Z. So no, it's in my book doesn't shouldn't ever be used, and the organizations that represent the breed should be acting against it. The fact that we are still being the breed is represented by organizations that represent the breeders of the breed it's bullshit, but it's nonsense. Sorry. I've got to watch my language. I'm not talking only to my friends on the open platform. So, yeah. Okay, listen, I'm a little bit pressed for time. I see we've been going for uh, a little bit over an hour. So, could we perhaps have a second session if you wish? Because I really have to go and do some things now.
Yeah, I would definitely appreciate that. I do have more questions, and but that would work perfect for me. Yeah, people would
Okay.
like. I like being
Right.
able to break it up like that every once in a while. So yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Yes. Now I'm a coffee farmer and need to go and oversee some work
Yeah.
outside in the fields, and the sun is going down here, so I better move my backside and get there and start supervising and doing something that brings me money.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot
Absolutely.
for a very
Yeah.
interesting conversation.
Yeah.
You are welcome to
Yeah.
contact me, and let's set up another session. And anybody's welcome to. I'm not. I am rather open in my communication
Yeah.
with people, and if I have time, I'll answer any questions or queries that come up. I don't always have time. It might take me a long time until I get to your response, but I will do so. So thanks a lot for including me, and
Yeah.
good luck with all the dogs, and congratulations on what you are trying to do and retain.
I appreciate that, and I will definitely be in contact with you, and I'll send you the links when this is up and ready to go.
Thanks a stack.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
All right.
Okay,
Bye
bye.
bye.